Welcome back, everybody, to the Oh So Spurs podcast. Coming off of a good, if not great, win against Nottingham Forest. I am here with my wonderful co-hosts, Sai. How you doing,
Hello,
Sai?
mate. How you doing? Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good.
Stu,
Hey, very glad to be back.
Welcome back,
and
Stupart.
our resident technician, Johnny. How you doing?
What's up, teacher? Are you, man?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
Good.
Like I said, we're off the back of a 3-1 victory over Nottingham Forest, where we started the game well, I think, and then kind of fell off the end of the second half. And then, as happens with a lot of games, I feel like under Ange recently, he lit a fire under our players at halftime, said something that I'm sure would be magical to listen to. And then we came out and I think we pretty much dominated the second half and took that into a fairly convincing victory. So I will start with Sai. What did you think of the game?
I, I think I wouldn't disagree with any of this summation that you give there, Deej. If I'm honest, there was that bit at the back end of the second half where the momentum sort of like went away from us. Chris Wood did the most Wood thing from 2 yards out and tried to exocet it into the net from 2 yards, and a little dink would have put it in. I think I heard on some podcast, Wood hits Wood. So that could have been a turning point. But even then, I think we would have come out, and the way that we played the second half, I think we would have still gone on and won it. It wouldn't have been as comfortable. And I think that the message that Ange sent at half time with the two substitutions, it wasn't even a message that those two were playing particularly bad. I don't think they were having a great game, but I think I think everybody was surprised when there was that double substitution at half time. But what that does is sends a message to say, listen, I'm prepared to mix it up. I'm prepared to take those tough decisions and to bring Højbjerg on. And I thought he had a great game when he came on. I thought he did so well. It's just a testament to the attitude of the guy. And then you've got Mickey at the back. My God, are we falling in love with that man? He's just unbelievable, isn't he? I mean, Son's up there in terms of love, but Mickey's coming up on the rails in terms of the love that we've got for the guy.
He's also such a handsome man.
Oh, he's gorgeous, isn't he? And he can seem to do nothing wrong. Oh God, I'm drifting off now. Oh. So I think all in all, ended up being a comfortable win. It was a comfortable start, a little bit rocky in that last 20 minutes of the first half, but we came out and dominated that second half, and it should, except for a worldy save from Johnson, the keeper. What with the Werner cross and the Johnson, almost the same as the goal against West Ham. But so I think a comfortable win. For once, we took the opportunity to progress above Villa when it looked like we could snatch it away from ourselves again. But now, like I said in our WhatsApp, if you would have taken all of the things that we've got right now at the start of the season and said 9 games to go, this is where we are, all of us would have snapped your hand off for it without a shadow of doubt. And we've got a lot to look forward to, because I think in the press conference, Ange also said we're doing broad brush stuff at the moment. This is all about the broad. We're not into the detail yet. This is all about getting us playing the way that I want us to play, to get the ethos, to get the culture in the club the way that I want it. And we're not even into the detail yet. So imagine what it's like, a couple of signings and we get into some detail. I mean, yeah, you've got to love the guy. And I know that you guys are going to touch on the press conference a little bit later, because that's something else to discuss, right? But yeah, similar summation to you, Didge.
All right, Stu, how about you? What did you think of the game?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same. I think we came out and I thought we were brilliant. I mean, they couldn't hold on to the ball. I thought everyone was just smothering them all over them. I thought Basuma started the game really, really well. He's not in the team for his passing, but he was able to kind of hold the ball, do the simple things, close down the opposition, get the ball back. The attack were all over the place. They were, scaring their defenders. Yeah. We were creating panic. We looked really good. That the own goal, the Werner own goal thing is what, 2 of them is it now? Werner, that him and Johnson, those crosses, you can see now it's the Ange ball finally beginning to kick in with wingers who are doing what he wants them to do: stay wide, come in, hit that low cross into the channel of uncertainty, and it's creating obviously problems for him. And then Werner again runs it, gives it to Johnson. Any other day that goes in the back of the net's 2-0, and we probably finish this with a 5-0 win. When it went up the other end and they scored, I was thinking, oh no. And the only thing that I would criticize the team for yesterday was we did seem to lose it. When they scored, we were all over the place. I don't know what happened. Lost confidence. Everybody, I mean, Basuma did fall off. He started well. This was awful then after that. But I thought the entire midfield were doing nothing, which is why obviously we're losing the ball and giving it back to him. So, when that started to happen, I was like, okay, this is when leaders should step up, and no one did. And I think a huge let-off when Wood hit the post, because if that had gone in, I still think we would have won, but it would have been a long, hard second half. But finally, the luck went our way. Ange did Ange things at halftime, and made fantastic early substitutions. We criticize him all the time, at the beginning of the season for waiting too long. Made very decisive subs at halftime. Højbjerg, as you said, Sai, all season, in my opinion, when he comes on as a substitute, he's been brilliant. When he started, he's been poor, but as a substitute, he's been absolutely brilliant. Apart from that Højbjerg thing he did.
I was gonna say.
Is it his new lovely locks? Is that what's driving it? He looks like he looks like a middle-aged dad now when he comes on, doesn't he? Getting a run out.
Yeah.
The other thing as well is I was slightly disappointed we didn't score more. When we went 3-1 up after 60 minutes almost, I thought we'd have pushed on and got a fourth or a fifth, which for the goal difference might have been helpful. But I thought, we played really, really well, apart from that 15-minute period in the first half. So, no complaints.
All right, Johnny, round us out with the analysis.
I wouldn't disagree with anything that either Sire or Stu just said. I guess the only things that I'd sort of add, it's funny. I guess there's as a fan, we're usually pretty much on the same page with most things, and we're all kind of pretty frustrated by this halftime meltdown that seems to happen amongst the fans. And I mean, I think that I agree with what Stu said. Like, I mean, in fairness, the first half, we were very good. But once they scored, we were really bad, and we were really bad. And I could I understood the nerves. I understood why people were a little bit panicky, but I just still felt I was taking the bait and responding to some comments about how useless we are, basically, and how there's massive problems with this and that. And I was like, actually, I know we've not played well for the last 15-20 minutes, but how many times have we come out of the second half and got a quick goal, and it happened again, and how many times have we scored one goal and then got another one pretty quickly after that as well, and that happened again. Yep. And it was a really good second half performance. I suppose you would be for Sarr to come in, and unusually poor performance for him yesterday has to be noted. Hopefully that's not something, that's just a one-off thing. I think that the other point about us scoring more goals, I mean, the thing is, until Van de Ven, we just were I'm sure it's the same with you guys. Sonny in particular is for some reason passing up opportunities to shoot, which he definitely would have taken in most of his career, and certainly would have been scoring some goals and forcing saves. And there was a couple of times yesterday when he took an extra touch, and he would have just been lashing them, whipping them into the corner or whatever, normally. So I don't know what the story is there. That's a little bit of a concern, I suppose. And then and the nature of the second goal from Mickey was it was. I remember listening to the interview afterwards when he was on there with Werner on Sky, and he was saying he saw that if the ball came to Sonny and he squared it to him, he'd already made his mind up that he was just going to lash the bejesus out of the ball, which is what he did. And he obviously, maybe half the time that goes into the rosette of the south stand, but it obviously went to the top corner, and like that's what we need to do. And it was obviously a beautiful strike, reminiscent of some other great goals. But what a way for him to open this account at home. And I think that those are sort of the frustrating things as fans, and where some of the whingers kind of have a little bit. There is some justification, I think, in those sorts of things, like the fact that we're going through this pattern of being like underwhelming in the first halves, often going behind. Okay, that didn't happen yesterday, but then like coming out of the blocks in the second half and being actually really good in the second half. Now, it is a bit annoying that we can't sort of just sustain things a little bit longer. And like, who am I to say? But I just don't get it's the same players. And I know in all games you go through sort of a momentum, it naturally ebbs from one team to the other and so on. But it would just be nice, especially when you know the talent that we have in our players, and I have a lot of belief in our players. Decky's obviously really struggling a lot. He was really wasteful when he came on again, and it was like poor decision making again. And so I suppose there's like just a few points that to kind of keep an eye on, but lots and lots of positives. I thought Højbjerg was brilliant. I thought Bentancur was really calm and composed, and there's quite a bit of discussion going on about Werner and do we keep him? And I think with what he's doing at the moment, like it's a bit of a no-brainer. I know his wages are high, but like the fee is very low, and he's a real menace. It'd be nice if he could, shoot a little bit more. But that's kind of the main points that I would add to what's been said already. But it's really nice that we actually are in fourth and we've got a game in hand and all of that, and onwards and upwards.
The thing about the goals scored is really interesting, because if you look at our goals scored right now, we're on 65 goals for. The highest that we've achieved in the last 5 seasons out of a full season is 70. So we're going to break that easily.
Right.
So I think, I don't know, because I feel the same. It feels like we should be scoring more goals, but we're actually, it wasn't until, it was 6 seasons ago that we got 74, and we might even break that this year. And so I wonder whether it's because we feel a little bit exposed at the back at times, and their goal came again down our left, their right, and that seems to have been exposed a couple of times in recent matches. So I don't know whether there's just a feeling that we're not scoring enough, but we seem to, on previous seasons, we seem to be on a par, if not ahead of.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, to be fair, our previous seasons we were playing under noted attacking managers, Mourinho, Conte, and Nuno. So it's not like we were going to be lighting the world on fire regardless. So I kind of understand the frustration. I think for me, I think the team kind of goes as Madison does. And I think that once they scored their first goal, I think that Yates got in his head. And I think that that's something that we really need to focus and that he needs to focus on, like getting better at. Obviously, I'm just a dude, so I can't speak too much to it and tell him how to improve. But it really felt like that the midfield wasn't clicking after the first goal, and I think that corresponds pretty well with Madison like lashing out, being fouled over and over and over again, which part of that is down to poor refereeing, I think. Again, letting Yates do whatever, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But part of it is just Madison needs to be a bit mentally stronger, because I think that after the second half, I guess Ange must have got through to him, because I don't think that he was engaging in as much of Yates's antics as he was in the first half with like the punch or whatever that could have gotten him sent off if on another day. So I think that I'm glad that he managed to like pull himself together, and obviously the delivery for the third goal that went off of Bentancur and then right to Porro was beautiful. But that's the kind of stuff that I would like to see more of from him, and it's the stuff that he was doing at the beginning of the season. And I think that since he's been back from injury, I'm not sure if he's been able to, like, I feel like he's been the one that the wind-ups have been targeted towards, and I think that should be a bit of maybe a point of emphasis for him to ignore those more, because I feel like since he's come back from injury, he's been more susceptible to it, because he hasn't been on the score sheet as much, so he hasn't had the scoreboard thing to like clap back with. Which
I do wonder if it's also because he's not at least in my opinion, he hasn't played very well since he's come back from injury. So I wonder if that also is why he's getting wound up, because it's not just they are going for him and he's not getting any any help.
Bit of frustration,
But
maybe.
he's frustrated, I think, with that, and he's not playing well and not able to do what he was doing beforehand.
Yeah.
So it's all kind
it does
of
feel
over.
like a bit of a cycle, I think. Like he hasn't played particularly great, so he's getting wound up more, and then people are winding him up more, and that's causing him to wind himself up, and then he's playing worse, and then it snowballs.
Do you think that was maybe his best game since coming back from injury though? Yesterday, I thought the second half, when he calmed himself down and got control of the game, the way that he let the ball run across him and was turning players and drawing the fouls, and because he was really drawing the fouls in the second half rather than getting fouled, if you know what I mean. It was almost like, I'm going to do this because I know you're going to take me out, and that there he didn't show nearly as much frustration. I thought he had a really, really good second half, and maybe he can see himself coming back into some form. But we don't have that settled midfield, really, do we? We don't have. Who's our first choice midfield? What our first three? Still not.
It's Madison, Basuma, and then probably Sarr at this point. But after I would like to give a massive shout out to. We gave a shout out to Højbjerg, obviously, because Højbjerg played very well, except for the minute where he seemed determined to make the score 3-2. But man, when Benchenker is playing at his best, I don't think
beautiful.
There are not many midfielders in the league better than him.
He's gonna be in the midfield 3 this next season.
He's got to be. He travels with the ball so well.
His progression is it's just otherworldly at times. He's just, man,
but you can't have him and Sarr in the same side, can you? Really?
No.
Because Sarr's not going to do that 6 role, and Bentancur's not the strongest in that 6 role either.
I think you probably could play Bentancur in the 6 against a lower block team. I think that we could have played Bentancur, Sarr, Madison yesterday. I think that I'm assuming that Bentancur is probably still a little bit. I think we're probably working him back slower. Than because I don't think, despite us having 4 or 5 players that can play in the midfield, I still don't think we can afford to have Bentancur injured. So I think that we're probably being more cautious with him, which I think is a good thing. I think that's been, I feel like, a trend this season overall is being a bit more cautious with our returning injuries instead of just throwing them out there. I'm seeing the same thing with Richarlison. I feel like last season Richarlison would have played the last match, and if he had gotten injured again, then it wouldn't have been the end of the world because of the depth that we have now. But it's it would have been something that it would have been annoying, So
do you think Bentancur's still being blooded into the Postecoglou system as well? Because he's really not been back that long since the 2 injuries, right?
He definitely doesn't have
half a dozen games, 10 games maybe.
Yeah, no, he definitely doesn't have as much match playing experience as either Basuma nor Sarr. So
the preseason.
Yeah, and because they had the preseason, and he obviously was injured, and then Basuma was gone for a bit in January with AFCON.
Yeah,
but I think that I think it might be that. I think it's also a bit us being a little bit careful with his injury, and also that we just have. We have the luxury to be able to be careful with him because, like I said, we actually have a bit of midfield depth now where we can we have Basuma and then we have Højbjerg to back him up. We have Sarr and then we have Bentancur to back him up. And those two, I think, will eventually become interchangeable because I think that those two are both fantastic midfielders. And then we have Madison and we have Lo Celso to back him up. So I think that we have the luxury of being able to say, hey, you've been injured twice, 3 times in the past year. We're not going to push you too hard. You'll start a couple of games, but sometimes you're going to come off the bench. You'll play second half. You'll still play 30 minutes, and you'll look fantastic when you do it. But we're not going to push you for 60, 70 and risk another injury.
If you remember, Ali G said they spoke to some physio and medics.
Yeah,
exactly.
Majuli.
So he said that he spoke to some guys, and they said that it'll take a year for Bentancur to get back. So he's not going to physiologically speaking, he's not going to be ready until the beginning of next season. So I think that's why.
That Ali G. Sorry, we got you all mixed up with the other Ali G. We thought it was the Stains Massive getting on the phone.
Stains Massive, oh, yeah.
Borat's the massage.
All right. So, speaking of our midfield,
Maddison, you're talking about Maddison losing losing the plot a little bit, or getting wound up too easily, and it is a bit again. When you look at the profile of the squad, and he's 27, and so therefore one of the senior players, and he's obviously like international caps and stuff as well. I mean, you would sort of think, and he's the vice captain. You think and he's
on the leadership team. Right?
He's an intelligent guy, and he obviously is. He's a really good pro. Like, he's better than that, isn't he? Like, he's got to realize himself he needs to cop on. So, I think as we've said ourselves, he is the sort of player, if he plays for another club, he'd wind you up, and you'd think he's a cheeky little bugger and all of that. But I admire him a lot, and I think the more we've seen, even the stuff he does, the charity stuff he does, and how good he is with the fans and stuff, like, he seems like. You would be confident, especially under Ange, that he'll sort this out. It is definitely something that the other teams obviously identified.
But we also like him being a bit of a wind-up merchant as well.
Yeah, true.
The little ball outside the corner. We like a little bit of that playfulness. Yeah. And he's one of those players that I know that they say about a lot of players, but if you take that edge away from him, you lose a little bit of what he is. So it's to your point, Jonny, it's a fine line. He's got to tread the right side of the line.
Yeah.
And he covered the punch quite nicely with a forearm when he had a go. So, but it wasn't exactly a Tyson right hook, was it? No. To put down Yates.
Yeah, no. I was gonna ask the panel's opinion on this. I honestly, from watching it back, like, either he covered it very well, or it was a bit of a push off. I really think that it was a 100% an acting job by Ryan Yates, because I don't think he deserves the benefit of the doubt because of everything that he's done for just our games. And like, I don't follow Forest super closely, so I'm not aware of how he plays on a regular basis. Maybe he's an upstanding gentleman for 36 out of 38 games.
No,
but I would guess that's not the case. So I think that he's probably committed 20 or so fouls over the 2 games against us this season and managed to walk away with 2 yellow cards, maybe 1. I don't even remember if he got carded in the first game. But I don't know. I think that if it was another player that went down like that, maybe I'd believe them, but I don't think I don't buy it from him.
But also, I don't think Madison's ever put anyone down like that.
No. Even the commentators were like, nah.
Yeah, even the American commentary was like, nah. I don't know. I mean, obviously, you guys don't have to put up with the wonder that is American announcing, but they don't like us over here all that much.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you would think someone died most of the time we score. From at least one of the 2. Usually the play-by-play guy is fine because he's like doing whatever. But the color commentary, to give you perspective, during the West Ham game, the color commentary was referring to West Ham as "we" the entire game.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So it's like that. They have a lot of the team, maybe not necessarily anti-Spurs particularly, but pro teams that dislike Tottenham.
Right.
So even them, they were like, this is nothing. Speaking of this being nothing, I think that after Yates went down, he spent the next 30 minutes to an hour, it felt like, motioning for VAR and a card, which last time I read the rule book, and based on things earlier this season that have gone against Tottenham, that is a card. Which would have given him a second yellow card, which would have sent him off. This has happened so many times in the season against teams, but it also just hasn't happened, which is going to bring me to my next point, which is refereeing inconsistency and why it's so unbelievably frustrating, because that happened. The other thing that people have been talking about is Danilo's tackle on was Lo Celso, I think, where
Yeah.
he swings for the ball. I think he gets it, but then he leaves his foot high and his studs go directly into Lo Celso's knee, which that happened for people are bringing up the Chelsea tackle with Romero, and I think that tackle. Well, I think that tackle was like bad. I don't think that tackle.
No.
I think that tackle was definitely worse than Danilo's. The one that I'm thinking of is the Basuma red card, where he swings wildly for the ball. His foot, he like grazes off of someone's knee, but because his studs are up and it's knee height, he gets sent off, which I agreed with at the time because I thought that was the rule. And like, I'm not going to complain too much about it because we won 3-1 and like, who cares? And like complaining about refereeing decisions is kind of lame, and we should leave that to other fan bases who like make that their personality. But I just wish that I had some consistency. Like if that hadn't been given against Basuma, I wouldn't have thought twice about that being a yellow, because like I see that he swings for the ball, he gets the ball. Lo Celso is also going in for the ball, and fate brings them together basically. No one's trying to play in a dangerous manner. So what if it's a yellow? But I wish that we could get that kind of rationale when we get 50-50 decisions like that. And I guess maybe we should consider ourselves lucky because Madison didn't get sent off, and that's been like a whole talking point too. But I don't think those two are in the same stratosphere in terms of historical decisions.
No. I think if Danilo goes, I think that's harsh.
I agree.
And I get your Basuma. I get you, the Basuma, the reference point of Basuma, and I agree with you that if one is one, then the other is one as well. You know, whether it's yellow or red, they're very similar in terms of their of certainly the application and the outcome. But yeah, so for me, I think that was the right decision on Sunday, and Basuma's was the wrong decision. So that is the Basuma one that's the outlier there for me, not the Danilo one. So I think it would have been incredibly harsh if he'd have got sent off for that. It was a genuine challenge for the ball. He's kicked the ball and follows through, and it's unfortunate where it catches Lo Celso. I don't think it was particularly endangering another player, but it was a horrible tackle, and I think it's a yellow.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. Like I said, the thing is like I feel like there are some like red card offenses that kind of look like harsh in the moment, but like, you know, if it goes a different way, then you're complaining that this kind of tackle needs to be removed from the game.
Yeah.
You know, like if Lo Celso's knee had flipped basically, and he got a yellow for that, he would have gotten red because we judge whether we like it or not. Red cards are often given because of outcome, not because of the actual tackle.
And I think if the foot was on its way down and got him on the shin, that's a different story than if the foot was on the rise and it got him on the inside of the thigh. I think that's the optics of it are different as well.
Yeah.
The Romero one, he was on the rise.
Yeah, but he did also, I think, go back down on it as well.
Yeah.
I think the problem with Ramirez was that he was going to ground, and I think that's what screwed him up, was that he kicked the ball, but then he was also like kind of sliding, so he couldn't.
Yeah,
pull
he was
out of the
deemed to be more out of control, right?
Yeah, which I think like it was a 50-50 ball. Like I don't know. I still think that was a maybe foul, sure, but I don't. Red felt harsh, but I'm not going to go over refereeing decisions 6 months ago because it's whatever. We move on.
I do think like the basic point of refereeing is the consistency, and obviously it is it's an issue where it comes down to human decision making and so on. But there does seem to be I think especially when it comes to penalties, because of the consequences are so significant. Like that's the thing that frustrates me. And I mean, I know we famously only had one penalty this season with the most fouls against us and all of that, but and that doesn't make a whole lot of sense considering we are attacking an awful lot of the time in most of our games. There haven't been a huge number of penalties, I think, where we've been denied, maybe a couple. Of
the Werner one was the most obvious one, I think.
Yeah. But it's even going back to the other involvement with Basuma, when we were talking a minute ago there, Deej, about about the yellow card for Yates looking for VAR to get involved. Like, that is a yellow card, and obviously when he got sent off against Luton for diving, that was a yellow card offence. The referee knew as soon as he gave the yellow that meant it was going to be a red. We all would have been more annoyed with Basuma than the referee, because the referee was doing what he's supposed to be doing. Yeah. So that's the rules, and that's what you need to enforce. So, like, when refs are being lenient, why are they deciding to have they use the discretion on this in one game and not in another game? That's the thing that really annoys me. And it's like,
well, the reason Basuma got sent off was because of Liverpool. Like, let's be completely honest here. There was a run of games where they were refereeing us closely, which is like fine. They're refereeing us how they should, technically. But you see the Basuma dive and you get a yellow for it, which gives him a red. That's fine. Yeah. That is the rule. You cannot be mad with it. We were more angry with Basuma than we were with the referee. But then every week you see the player, for example, this week, Ben White gets in, pushes Estupinian. Estupinian turns back around and Ben White goes down like he'd been shot. It's and then nothing happens. Like, it's just so inconsistent, and I just want anything. Like, either give it for everything or give it for nothing. I prefer they give it for everything. I'm fine to tank the Basuma getting sent off. I'm fine if Maddison dives and gets a yellow, because that will happen if they give that every time, because Maddison does himself a dive.
We've spoken about this before, but the issue, at the beginning of the year, they're supposed to be clamping down dissent, and there were more yellows this season at the beginning than there had been sort of for a very long time. And then yesterday I was watching the Man United Liverpool game. My dad was down for the weekend. We were watching with him, and also he's 79, so he's proper old school. He believes that batsmen should walk in cricket if they know they've taken a tickle on the bat and all of that. And I admire that, I respect that, and that's fair enough. But and we'd watched the Leinster rugby match the night before, and obviously the discipline, the way the refs and the players engage with each other in rugby is a completely different story. And no one can argue that football isn't in the Stone Age when it comes to the way that the players behave towards one another, behave towards behave towards the officials. And you got Anthony yesterday was absolutely losing the plot in the second half against Liverpool. I was just waiting. He didn't get booked, and it was just what is actually going on here? It's really, and then speaking as a teacher as well, when you've got kids, you're on supervision and break, and you see the kids they're still doing that bloody Ronaldo Sui thing, but they copy everything, and they think that's all right, and it's absolutely horrendous. So
they come off the pitch like that, talking to each other.
Come on, exactly, it's hilarious. But it's really bad, and it's embarrassing because, if you, as a football supporter, that doesn't need to be part of the game. It doesn't need to, and managers should call it out as well. It's so predictable. Nuno, I mean, I like Nuno and everything, but yesterday when he's going on about the Maddison thing, of course he's gonna say that it was a punch and it was wrong and all that, but I don't know, mate. Do you really think that? It's almost like they can't just say what they believe, what is actually the right thing to say.
And I think there's more obvious things that need to get dealt with as well. There's the diving, because that's you can absolutely VAR can absolutely make up whether there's contact or not. The other thing that does my fucking nutting is the holding and grappling in the box at a corner. If you were doing that in the centre circle on a goal kick and you threw someone to the floor, it's a free kick. No two ways about it. How do you get away with all of that grappling, all of that obstruction in the box? It's just, it does my nutting.
But it's everything. It's like even how Vicario is treated. That happens to Alisson. It's a free kick every single time.
A tenth of that happens to Alisson. It's a free kick. Alisson gets looked at the wrong way. It's a free kick. I guess not Alisson anymore.
With Vicario, the attacker is allowed to basically push him out the way, shove him out the way. And what the hell? I have no issue with it, but then be consistent with all the goalkeepers.
Yeah. It's the stuff that happens in the box, because the penalty for whatever happens in the box is so high, i.e. it's a 0.8% chance, or it's an 80% chance of a goal for those, and it's not just a free kick in the centre circle. There seems to be a higher degree of intent or fouling that needs to happen in order for that But then you get some. Then
Unless
you
you're
get some of
Liverpool.
the. Yeah, and then you get some of the ones that come in just at the outside of the box. They've lost control of the ball. There's a slightest touch, and they throw themselves to the ground. And the punishment is an 80% chance of a goal when the ball was going out anyway. It just something doesn't feel right.
The Anthony Gordon thing that he's been doing recently, where he loses the ball and instead of going for the ball, he goes for the man and sticks his body between the man.
Yeah, flicks. Then, leaves a trailing leg. There's contact. I'm going down.
Yeah, it's frustrating to watch, but it's something that's like when the rules change, the players will adapt to try to bend the rules. It's like a couple years ago when we had the handball rules were really, really strict, and then the strategy just became kick ball at players' hand in the box.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of penalties that way. I mean, we had the one where Eric Dyer was jumping for like a corner or a free kick, and and Andy Carroll like headed the ball directly into Eric Dyer's arm. He's looking the other way, and I still give a penalty for it, which is whatever. But like
my dad is, my dad's old school like Jonny's, and he says the same thing. Penalties. If you start giving penalties for all the grappling, as you were saying, Si, exactly as DJ said, players will adapt and they'll stop doing it. All it'll take is two weekends of giving 10 penalties a game.
Exactly.
It'll stop.
Yeah. The problem is I don't think
my dad
Tottenham really wants to tank
my
that.
dad says that. Shout out to Dad. Thinks it's the dad's theme today. But he said, I can't remember which game it was we were watching yesterday because we watched the Old Firm, then we watched Liverpool Man United, then we watched Tottenham Forest. It was a really good day. And he was in one of the games. I think it might have been the Old Firm. Like somebody scored and they took their jersey off and they got booked. And my dad said, "What the hell's going on there?" And I told him, "No, it's all my booking if that happens." And he was like, "Why? What the hell's that all about? Like, why?" And then he said, if he was a manager, he would be tempted if he'd won the league with a couple of games to go, then just to make sure that every player after their goal, they all took off their shirt after the first goal, and they all got yellow cards, and then to do it again after the second goal, just to make a point because it's such a stupid rule. And I thought, there are some what is the story with that? Because I was saying to him, I remember the whole you'd have messages on people's Under Armour type thing,
advertising,
and is that what the logic was?
It started because of the advertising.
Yeah. I have no idea, but I like Mr. Adair Senior. I've never met him, but I like him a lot.
He's not shy of an opinion.
Oh, that's where it's from then.
Talking about my son again like that when he's not here.
That's it, mate. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to wrap this up, I don't want to spend too much longer talking about this because we won 3-1, obviously.
Yeah.
So we're going to move on to more good things but yeah, I don't know. Referee inconsistency is really annoying, and I think it always will be. But yeah, I guess you got to learn to roll with the punches, I suppose. And if you're Yates, I guess you should probably take that more literally than others. So we will move on to our man of the match. We've talked about Nicky Van de Ven ad nauseum, but I want to talk about him a little more just because, man, he's so good. I saw him take that shot, and I instinctively looked to the top corner of my screen to watch the ball fly out of the stadium because, that's kind of how those shots go. But man, he took the net off. Wow, what a player!
Unbelievable!
What a man! Oh,
what a man!
Early 20s. That's crazy.
I know, and he's gorgeous.
Do you remember when? You remember when lots of people on Twitter were going nuts because Ange said we'd never buy £100 million player, and people were going nuts. Oh, blah 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 blah. How much is Van de Ven worth right now?
Yeah, we bought a $100 million player. We just spent.
We bought a £100 million player for 40-odd million.
Yeah.
It's
that's where I love Ange about the Champions League. That going back to the previous presser where he's like, if they want Champions League football and that's all they want, I don't want them. Because guess what? We can get good players. Mickey Van de Ven, and he was just like Mickey. He's a good player, right? He's coming. He's a good player. He didn't. We're not in Champions League. We still get these players. This is if you look at where certain teams get those players that give them a disproportionate impact overall. Mickey's that one of those players. Yeah. You notice him so much when he's not there. And his speed and grace, whether it's bringing the ball out or covering in that sweeper role. There was one, I think he was in a 1-on-1 with Alenga, and he just moved away from him. He just cruised away from Alenga, and he's no slouch, mate. And Mickey just went, "See ya." Yeah,
We've lost one game all season where he's played the 90 minutes.
Oh, really?
One game.
yeah.
So
Now the stats guys don't like that though, because there's other correlations that you could. So correlation and causation are a bit of a mix there, but
Sure,
it's quite a sample set.
it is. It's the stat gets stronger by the day.
And you look, the average position where we are, he pushes us 10 meters further up the field when he plays.
Yeah.
Because we can have that space behind. I mean, he's just amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and to go, absolutely, to go back to what I was saying about Ange's press conference and him specifically the quote about if you want Champions League football, don't come here. Well, obviously that's not what he said, but like
No,
if
that's all you want,
yeah,
that's
exactly.
all you want.
Yeah.
Like I think he's got a fantastic point, because I think that most of our best signings in recent memory have come outside of Champions League, like having Champions League places. Like, for example, Vicario, Van de Ven, Romero, off the top of my head. Son, if we want to go back that far, we were in the Europa League at the time.
Yeah.
Madison. I mean, we've gotten a lot of players that have come here outside of our Champions League, like having Champions League football, and that's like the huge draw, and that's what we like need to succeed to get good players to crack on. But that's not necessarily the case. I think he makes a fantastic point that if that's all you want, go to some other glory hunting club, man. Yeah. I mean, if you're gonna come here, I think you need to fit into the culture here now, and I think that the culture is super important for any team, and being able to cultivate a good one like we have that Ange wants to make is fantastic, and I'm hoping that we can continue that.
Yeah. Do you think he's getting a bit bored of the same questions in the pressers time and time again, though?
Do you think he cares about the top 4 race?
I'm not sure. I might see if we can
ask
slip
about that. We should call up our people, see if they can ask him about it on the next press conference.
He's like, how many times do I have to say the same shit to you in a different way?
Straight off the bat, boys.
Honestly, it's like, that was the first question, wasn't it? You know, you're in pole position for top 4. You went, well, there you go, straight away. Oh, dear.
Yeah, I also liked, I don't know, it was the one before the match where they were asking him, about the press conferences and stuff. And he's like, basically, I'm not talking to you journalists. I couldn't care less about you. I'm answering questions and talking to the fans.
No, I think that's because it's his only way. I think he said that, the fans this is the only way the fans really get to understand and hear from the club through me, because I am the only spokesperson for the club. And it's sort of like a bit different here than it is abroad as well, Stu. I think you were saying like way back that, especially in Italy, you hear a lot from the directors of football. You hear a lot from the presidents and the such like. So, the English game is, and the sporting directors. So it is a bit different here.
There was an interview he did last week, I think it was, with some Australian female journalist. Yeah. And it was funny because, again, although he's obviously speaking to an Australian audience primarily with that interview, and that's very much where a lot of her questions were coming from, like he just still gives the straight answer, because you would kind of think, okay, well, most people are going to just ingratiate themselves with the audience knowing, but she was saying about, one of her questions was about like, oh yeah, the UK media are like really notoriously like, absolutely like a bunch of scoundrels and stuff, and his first comment back was like something about I think the Australian media can give them a good run for their money kind of thing.
He said,
Don't
put yourself down.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, you'd love that sort of. It's so refreshing that somebody just it's like Larry David kind of thing. They just like say it as it is, man. It's just great out there.
I thought one of the questions that he was asked about as well, about, it's like, players you were linked with at Celtic, where he's like, nah, none of that was true. Just like here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He's a
And I
fantastic
also like,
character.
yeah, I also like the response that he had about, about the financial results and will that affect the summer spending. He said, listen, whatever we
Yeah.
want to do in the summer is well underway. It
Yeah.
doesn't change any of the plans that we had for the summer. Because guess what? Their financial accountants knew what the results were going to be months and months and
Yeah.
months ago when they put the plans in place and the budget
Wow.
was set for next year.
Yeah,
Wow. All of a sudden, Ange's budget gets set once the accounts are made public. Fucking hell.
Yeah.
And this is what half of our fan base go nuts on. It's like, that's not the way businesses run.
Actually, it is. A wizard waves his wand, and then we figure out how much money we have for the next season, and we all figure it out at the exact same time. And then that's how. Then Levy takes like 75% of it and puts it in his pocket.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he's a Slytherin.
Because funny enough, they don't
takes 20% to spend on his legal fees.
Because they don't forecast at all. These big multi-billion companies, they don't forecast. There's no looking into the future on this. It's just like, oh yeah.
No, because I mean, they didn't know on the 1st of July how they finished the previous year. They had to wait until last week.
Yep.
It's crazy how long those things take. It's crazy how long it takes for them to figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay, enough of that. But yeah, I think Ange is a fantastic character, and I'm glad that we have him at our helm instead of some of the other characters in charge of the Premier League. We're fantastic coaches. I'm not going to take anything away from them, but man, the way that they handle their press conferences sometimes rubs me the wrong way. And I'm sure I'd love them if they were my manager. Just like for a time, we put up with Conte's bullshit. But I think.
And I wonder if Ange is still this magnanimous 6 or 7 years into those same questions being asked, or whether he gets a bit spiky, like Klopp. Because everyone loved Klopp at the start, didn't they? Breath of fresh air, this Jurgen Klopp guy who's finishing 7th and 6th and speaking truth to power. Yeah, and then when he becomes the power, then all of a sudden there's other things going on. I don't think he will, but Yeah,
it depends how he deals with pressure once we're expected to win, because that's Klopp now. When they don't win, he's a unpleasant individual.
He's the nicest guy in the world when they win.
Yeah,
of course he is.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I think Ange has got that kind of. He just gives you the impression that he's been around the block and he's pretty even keeled, and even when they lose, he'll handle it with a nasty, a sarcastic comment, but nothing, as nasty as some of the stuff that Guardiola came out with the other day as well.
Yeah. We won't go into that here. Not our team. Not my circus. Not my monkeys.
There you go.
But anyway, to wrap up talking about the game before we go into a couple of questions that we had, I want to give a shout out to Pedro Porro, because we've talked about every goal scorer, I think, but him. Fantastic strike. His goal. He takes a lot of shots that don't go in, but man, when they go in, he's got a fantastic goal catalog for us from right back. It's absolutely unreal, and I'm glad that he finally scored in the league this season, because I think for a while he had the highest XG of any player to not score a goal. So he's gotten himself off that list.
Yeah. And to be fair, if the net wasn't there, I think it would be down past the North Circular. It was travelling at such a speed. It would have been a couple of miles down the road. Fair play to you, Pedro.
Indeed. So now we're going to get into some questions from the last podcast. We may or may not have forgotten to put the question thing out on Twitter, but whoops. We'll do that next time, I swear. So first question is from Peter, and he asks if Mickey could play as a number 6 with Romero and Dragusin as the fullbacks, or I think to give an extra tall person for set pieces. So I think I understand the reasoning behind this, especially coming off the back of the West Ham game where we did concede off of a corner. I do think that corners are definitely our area of weakness. I think if I had to pick one outside of maybe left-sided counterattacks. But I think that if I were to pick a center back to put up there, I think I'd take Dragusin, just because I think Dragusin's passing range is, I think, a bit better than Van de Ven's, and also Van de Ven's pace is so important at center back that removing him for Dragusin is taking away one of Van de Ven's biggest strengths, because he won't be able to use that speed as effectively, I guess, if that makes sense. I also think that, it's really hard for a player to switch positions. And for as much as people have like dogged on Basuma, he's still a fantastic six. And I think Basuma and Højbjerg would probably influence the game in a positive manner, in a more than them being shorter removes from corners, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a big price to pay for having another big man at the back.
Yeah.
The other point, like I don't know what you think, and is more just thinking about his size and his mobility, and like he's not bad at all, but like just when you're taking the ball facing your own goal and turning to distribute forwards, like I'm not sure if would be Van de Ven's kind of strong point really either. I think that's an important part of that role. So yeah, I think you're sacrificing far too much to get the reward.
Yes, I would agree with that. But I honestly, if I were in Football Manager and my season was not going well and I kept conceding a bunch of corners, I'm not gonna lie, I'd take a hard look at Dragusin and I'd think about putting him at a 6. So I understand where the question is coming from, and I totally think that it's something that if we do continue to have problems with set pieces, I think that the solution would probably just be to buy a taller 6. But who knows? You know, maybe we'll just go back to playing a back
or
three.
just mark the fucking opposition better.
Yeah,
I don't think we haven't got enough people that are good in the air. I mean, when Richarlison's in, he can come back and defend the corner. Yeah. I mean, we're just not very good at that man-to-man marking on set pieces. I don't think.
I think it was Kane. To be honest,
Kane was fantastic on defensive corners.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Peter, for that question, and we're going to go to
Peter.
Paul for our other question, which kind of feeds
From
into
Peter
each
to
other,
Paul.
which is
you did it deliberately in that order as well, Deej.
Yep,
absolute genius.
We
classic, seamless.
This leads well into what we were talking about, so that's why I was trying to be like been trying my hardest to force this question in before we kept talking about it. But Paul asked if Kuti, Mickey, and Vicario are also good, why are Spurs so vulnerable at set pieces? So I think we talked about this a little bit. I think, as Simon mentioned before the podcast, we do a lot of zonal marking, which has its strengths when you are a super cohesive unit, but I don't think we are that yet in terms of set pieces, which is a little bit worrying, honestly. I think that it would be nice to get another set piece coach because obviously we were really good at them last year. And I think a lot of that is obviously down to Harry Kane being fantastic in the air, both offensively and defensively. But also having a set piece coach, I think, is almost a must in today's Premier League. So I think looking at someone, I'm sure we have someone who does something of that sort already.
Mason does it a bit, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I think so.
Attacking. It's the Australian.
He does attacking.
Okay, so we could have. So whoever does our defensive set pieces, we may need to be putting out an Indeed job posting to find another person to fill that role, because I think that I think that's the area that I think you can point at the most. It's like the biggest flaw that's maybe not easily fixable, but like pointedly fixable, because obviously we have problems fixing like conceding on counterattacks, but that's kind of just a byproduct of the system. We take that.
Yeah.
But conceding off of corners is not a byproduct of the system. In fact, that it makes the system a lot weaker.
I think also, as much as I obviously go on about how good he is, I think also this is an area where Vicario maybe can improve on, because it's his first year in English football, which is very, very different to Italian football with the corners and the crosses. And I think it's something that maybe in the off season he can work on to dominate his area a bit more.
And he's not a little fella. We touched on this. He's a little bit. He's quite slight. He looks quite slight, but he's nearly 6'4". He's weight. He's over just over 190. I think 193. I think he is.
Yeah.
So he's not a little fella. So he needs to learn how to command and that, especially that 6-yard area. He does feel like he gets bullied off the ball quite easily, or bullied in that area quite easily.
I mean, yeah, part of that is that I think his height is working against him a little bit. I think if he was a bit shorter, I think he'd get more calls.
Yeah,
I also think if he was wearing a different jersey, he'd get more calls. But that's
neither here nor there. Antonio was just He couldn't move him. Antonio was just bent over with his arse stuck out, and he wasn't moving. So the ref couldn't really do much because Antonio wasn't going anywhere. So what do you do in that situation? If Vicario can't move him out of the way, which he should be able to do, just get him out of the way.
But
it's a bit of a tangent. Go ahead, no, go on, Stu, because my point is somewhat irrelevant.
I saw someone before talking about, people were talking about, players of the season. And obviously, Vicario and Van der Ven were mentioned. Another one mentioned was Romario. And then someone said, well, why are we so crap defensively? Ask you guys, without looking at the table, how many teams do you think have conceded less goals than we have?
7.
Si?
So I don't think our conceding is as bad as our XG against. Our XG against is terrible, but I don't think we concede as much as we think. I would say there's probably 10 teams worse than us.
I think we're like 4th best or something like that.
5th. There's the 3 above us, and a team you're never going to guess, Everton.
Oh, wow.
Conceded less.
I mean, I guess that makes a lot of sense. Deichball is undefeated.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So
But
realistically,
that just shows you that defensively we're not that bad.
Yeah. Realistically,
but we give up a lot of chances. That's why it feels like we're that bad, I think.
Yeah. I mean, part of the problem is that because we're better defensively, it does feel like we're giving up more goals from set pieces, which I think we are, but that's just because we're not giving up as many goals from open play. Outside of we give up our goals on 2 things. We give up our goals on set pieces and counterattacks. And we look at that and we're like, okay, we're bad at counterattacks, we're bad at set pieces. But honestly, we could probably frame it as we're good at everything else. And we're way better at everything else than we were last season. I think that we'll continue to improve, obviously, as we get more players in, we get more players to fit the Ange vision, and we work together and find out a better way to protect some players.
Did you hear what Mickey said about how we look like we're about to concede every time? He's like, we know what we're doing. He goes, it might not look like that from the outset, but we know that the guy's actually offside. We know that we're going to cover him, cut him off this way. He goes, it's a lot more under control than the chaos it looks like from the outside.
Particularly for the offsides trap and the cohesion of the back line, I think the back 4 this year looks infinitely better than the back 5 did last season. And I think that that's something that we kind of forget easily because I don't know about you guys, but I took therapy to get that shit out of my mind from last year. But man, the way that we hold our line this season has been almost that's the way that so many goals are conceded. Is you have 3 players in a perfect line, and you have the one guy who's been pulled by the run, and he's like a yard behind, then someone gets in behind, and then the goal gets scored. And that's happened to us a couple times this season. But the way that we play, it's a miracle that it hasn't happened more often. And I think that that's a testament to how well our back line is played. And that's I think the main strengths of Cudi, Mickey, and Vicario. I think that they play super well together. I think that there are weaknesses. Obviously, I think that set pieces are probably our biggest one. But I think that overall, if you look at them, I don't think you trade them for many people.
No.
So great stat there, Stu. By the way, great stat.
Yes, definitely.
Well done.
The ball playing ability of our defenders as well compared to last season. I mean, with all due respect, obviously, with a lot of respect for Emerson, and Longley was quite ropey, really. You get all of those guys, but whenever backs they're facing their own goal line, and how many times they're facing their own goal line, and they don't. There's no panicking. Like last year, how many times were we panicking? They're either playing it back and working it forward quickly, or turn. How many times a doggy turns and he's away? It's and Poro's the same, but a doggy's particularly good at that. So it's an incredible upgrade from last season.
Yes, and we will only continue to get better. Unfortunately, I have to step away, so I'm gonna think we're gonna call it here. It's been about an hour anyway, so I think this is probably a good place to end it. But we will be back later in the week, hopefully, for a Newcastle preview. We'll finish always with an up Spurs.
Go you Spurs!
And don't forget to like and subscribe, and maybe comment.
Ding 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 ding.
Comment your favorite set piece we've conceded, and also maybe a question for the next podcast. All right, have a good one, y'all.